What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So first, just a quick apology for no Tuesday upload. I got a little swamped and I wasn't able to put this video together in time to make Tuesday. So you're going to get it on Thursday instead. We'll get back to the Tuesday, Thursday uploads. I was too busy this week and I couldn't get it done. With me having to do all of the editing and all the uploads and all of that stuff, all the filming. It's super tough for one guy to do this, but I'm doing the best I can, and I hope you guys appreciate the content that I am putting out. Before I get to today's topic, which is jerkbaits, I want to show you what my wife got me for her anniversary. We just celebrated 11 years, and this thing is absolutely beautiful. It is a knife, little fillet knife type deal. Just an absolutely beautiful knife in the shape of a fish. It's got wood sides there, wood burned in with the scales. On this side, just the belt clip and stuff. Really beautiful knife. I'll take it with me when I'm out in the boat just for clipping lines, stuff like that. But yeah, I thought it was beautiful. So I was super excited to get that. But let's talk jerkbaits. So this first one I'm going to talk about is one of my favorites. This is the RCS-TX. The Rookie Clun jerkbait. One of my absolute favorites. I think that this one's in the French pearl color, which I think works pretty well across the country, but it works particularly well here, especially in the spring and the fall on smallmouth. But I get this in two versions. So this is the floating version, and in the fall months, I generally will fish the suspending version. And there's a couple of tricks you can do to these when you are rigging them up. So number one, you can change these hooks out. So even on these floating versions, change these hooks out to a little bit of a bigger hook. You can get it to slow sink just a little bit. Same thing with those suspending ones. If you want it to sink a little bit faster or sink a little bit slower, you can raise or lower the hook size. You can use the suspending dots and stuff like that. I think changing out the hooks is probably the better way to do it. And then another little trick, and people talk about this all the time, is adding a split ring to your current split ring. And basically what that does is there isn't a ton of, I guess, give. So when a fish grabs this thing and they start bending and doing the crazy stuff they do, once it hits a certain spot, you're unable to, it just makes it easier for them to come unbuttoned, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you add a second split ring in there, it really gives it a better range of motion, and you can keep those fish pegged just a little bit better adding a second split ring. Now you will have to be careful because sometimes that does cause the hooks on the bottom to connect to each other because you have that extra split ring. But I haven't noticed it on the ones that I've changed out too awful bad. This particular one, especially in the fall months. And you got to kind of play with it. So you think about things like cadence, right? And that's how fast you're working that back to the boat. And I'll show you in a couple of clips here where, you know, the first set I'm working it pretty fast, pretty aggressive. And as the water gets colder and colder, I'm going to work it slower and slower. So let's cut to this first clip and I'll kind of talk you through what I'm working with. So the second jerkbait I usually keep tied on is one of the Strike King KVDs. So the reason I use this one is, so there's a couple of reasons really. So if you take a look at this particular jerkbait, it's got a nice long bill. So this one's going to dive quite a bit deeper. On the right line, you can move this down to, 12 to 14 feet, depending on the line size you use. And that's another really good way to control your depth. If you want it to run a little bit shallower, up your line size. If you want it to run a little bit deeper, take your line size down. So go from a 14 pound to a 12 to a 10, and you'll get another foot or so depth up or down, depending on where you go from a line size, right? So one of the things I was talking about is this bill. So I really like the front scoop on this bill. That does a couple of things. It gets it down deep quick, but not only that, it allows it to, when you're ripping it through the water, it catches so much water, it allows it to not come forward so fast, right? So when you give this thing a pop, because of the design of that bill, it really pushes a lot of water and stops quick. And a lot of times that'll cause it to, turn sideways, roll a little bit. All of those crazy things that just trigger a bass to eat that. When you're working a jerkbait, you don't want it just ripping through the water and coming right back to the boat. That's absolutely 100% the wrong way to fish a jerkbait. A jerkbait is really there to mimic a dying minnow, injured minnow. They're not ripping through the water generally, right? They're flickering around and stopping and, kind of sinking down, whatever they're doing. And so being able to have that nice wide bill will catch a lot of water. And so when you're giving it those, even just, insane snaps of the rod, you're not pulling this thing more than a foot. And that's exactly what you want when you're working one of these things. And the rods are super important as well. I've talked about this in a previous video, but, having the right rod is paramount to any jerkbait that you have tied on. You want something that's got, decent backbone, decent parabolic bends so that you can drive that hook home, but a soft tip so that you're not ripping it through the water. I use a 7-foot to a 7'4" medium fast. Everybody can use whatever rod they please. It's fine. I'm just telling you, if you get a rod with too heavy of a tip, you're going to end up pulling that through the water more than you are allowing it to do those things that it needs to do, where it's, really darting side to side and not being pulled through the water back to the boat. So, like I said, I use a 7-foot to a 7'4", kind of depending on your height and your comfort level. I found like a 7-foot is perfect. But I started using this new favorite, not new, but a favorite Whitebird 7'4", medium action, fast tip. And that thing is, they call it a moderate tip. It's a fast tip. It is absolutely money when you tie a jerkbait onto it. It's great for that, and it's great for small crankbaits. So if you take a look at this first video here, you can really see that I'm working it quite a bit faster. I didn't really have any crazy pauses in the retrieve. I really didn't, I didn't wait, 5 or 6 seconds. I'm giving it a couple of twitches, a pause, twitch, pause, couple of twitches, pause, twitch, pause. It's kind of 2 pause, 1 pause, 2 pause, 1 pause. No real breaks in between, and the pause is pretty darn short. And I think this was a big old smallmouth, if memory serves me correct. This spot that I'm fishing is kind of a sneaky good spot. I'm sure plenty of people know about it, but I don't see a lot of people fishing it. And it's kind of a big rock flat that comes out. And when the water's down, where I'm throwing that jerkbait, it's only a couple of feet deep. But it comes all the way out to about 26 or 27 feet. 26 or 27 feet deep on the end. And in the fall, specifically, they school up there and just eat and eat and eat until they're full. And you can catch them all day long. Case in point, I had a buddy that fished a tournament there that very next week and ended up winning it in that spot. I think I probably caught about 20 pounds of fish on this particular day, my best 5, and I think he won it with like 18.5 or something. But again, you see me just working it fairly quickly, and another one here grabs it. And all these fish that I caught here in this footage you'll see are, I don't know, I was maybe on that point for an hour, and I caught, gosh, I probably caught 15, 16, 17 fish off of just that one point. And they weren't all huge, but there were several that were basically clones to each other. A lot of 3-pounders and 2.5s, and a couple of really big smallmouth. You know, and this was, I think it was September, maybe late September-ish, or mid-September, I guess. Water temps at this point were still about 52, 53 degrees. And they were just starting to move on to some of these big flats. And again, you didn't see the beginning on this one, but you can really tell they were loaded here. I switched boat position just a little bit and moved down from that point about 60 yards into that cove. I had saw one. You can kind of see that boat way out there in front of me there. That's my buddy. He came out with his dad and his brother from California, but we were sitting in the middle of this little cove talking, and I saw one jump after some bait fish, and I told him I was going to go out there and catch it. So I went out there, and yeah, I caught it. It was another pretty darn good largemouth. Just a really fun day to be out there. You know, again, nothing that's going to light the world on fire, but, you know, 2.5, 3-pounder, absolute blast to catch, especially when they're stacked up like that, when there's so many of them in there that, like, every other cast you catch them. At least that's what it feels like. I get them off, and then I have to rub it in just a little bit. That point where you see the boat way back there isn't as far away as... So now we move to, I think this was 2 weeks later. It's 20 degrees outside. The water temps are 42, 43. And I hadn't really had it figured out quite at that point. You can see me still working the jerkbait pretty quick. And here in a minute I figure out, oh, maybe I better slow this down just a little bit. So I start slowing it down, and I'm giving it just a little bit less violent twitches, much bigger pauses in the middle. And that's really when I started getting them. And man, I tell you what, this was another really, really fun day. So you can see I'm still working it really fast. I haven't quite figured it out yet. Now you can see me slowing it down. I'm going to slow it down. Longer pauses. And they're just, as soon as that longer pause started going in, they started attacking it. So I missed one there. Missed another one there. Then he came back and got it again. Gosh, it was just a blast. But we had to slow it way down. You know, when that water temp starts slowing down, they still need to eat. They just want something that's not so hard to catch. They're not going to expend a ton of energy. They just want something that's, you know, an easier meal. And again, that jerkbait is the perfect thing to throw when they want an easier meal, because you can leave it sit there and it's just going to suspend as long as you leave it sit there. This particular one I'm throwing right now is the RC. And it'll sink a little bit, but it's pretty slow when it sinks. Really minutely sinking through the water. So again here, just working a little bit slower. You know, and as the day came through and it started getting a little bit warmer out, you can speed that up again a little bit. Really, it comes down to listening to the fish. If you're not listening to what the fish are telling you, you're going to have a rough day out there. And upon, you know, when I got out there at first, I really wasn't listening to the fish. I was working the jerkbait as fast and as hard as I could fish it. Wasn't catching anything. And it wasn't until I really slowed it down that I started catching them. But that was just another good, you know, 2.5 pound largemouth. And I'm telling you folks, at this point I'm miserable. It is so cold out there. And again, just working it slow. Nice pause in between. You can see how long I leave it sit there. You know, I'm not talking, I'm leaving it sit there for, you know, a minute. But, you know, a good 2, 3, 4 seconds is what it took for these guys to really get them to fire. Sometimes it's going to be a 10-second pause. Sometimes in the wintertime, it could be a minute. And that can be really painful until you catch your first one. Then it's a lot easier to repeat knowing it's working. So again, another really good one here off of that real slow pause. Another nice largemouth. I'll try to boat flip him there, and obviously that didn't work. I don't recommend boat flipping every fish, by the way, but it is kind of fun to do. Almost fell over too. Another nice 2.5, 3-pounder. And now in this last clip, again, real slow working it. That one had hit like 3 or 4 times, and finally at the boat he grabbed it, but I had to slow it way down. This is another really good one. And I kind of cycled through a couple of different colors. Excuse me. I kind of cycled through a couple of different colors this week, or that day. I used that French pearl quite a bit. And then I've got a translucent, it's kind of translucent, and then a purple purple top to it that seemed to work out really well the colder the water got. And I'm not really sure why, but I guess it doesn't really matter. The point is you got to be willing to try some different stuff. Have a few different colors tied on. You're trying to, you know, match what's out there as best you can. But it doesn't always work. They get so used to seeing the same things over and over and over again that, you know, oftentimes you throw them something different, and it's what it takes sometimes to trigger those fish to eat. Another nice fish, 2.5, 3 pounds. Just a lot of clones like that, but we caught a couple of big ones on crankbaits earlier in the day, and we'll talk about those in another episode. So I don't know, you know, it was a fun day. Caught a lot of fish, had a lot of fun, froze my butt off, but I'd do it again because I just love it. So, you know, we kind of talked about the rod, the reel, or we didn't really talk about the reel, but I think the reels and jerkbaits are less important. I use a 7-to-1. You don't need anything that takes up a crap load of line, because when you're working a jerkbait, you're twitching the slack anyways. And sometimes they will run at you, so you want something with decent speed that you can catch up to them. But most of the time in the fall, you know, a 7-to-1 is fine. Anything in that area. From a line perspective, I do like to throw fluorocarbon when I'm throwing jerkbaits because it does sink. I use a lot of copolymer though, because I think you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get a little bit of stretch. It sinks a little bit. You get really good abrasion resistance. So I think for me, a copolymer is one of my favorite lines to throw. Really low memory. I just like the line. I use Iser line for dang near every circumstance. But what I was talking about earlier is you can adjust the depth on your jerkbaits, or really any tackle for that matter, by bumping your line size up or down. I think it's like for every 2-pound test up, you can vary your depth by a foot. So it's something like that. I can't remember what the exact calculation is. But if you want something to run a little bit shallower, let's say you got a 10-foot diving crankbait and you want it to run a little bit shallower, and you know it runs 10 feet on 12-pound fluorocarbon, you can bump it to 14-pound and get it to run 8 feet to keep it above a weed line or whatever target you're after. And I think that's something that's often overlooked, is being able to adjust that just by line size. You know, Gerald Swindle put out a really good video around the DT series crankbait and how he fishes them. And he'll have 4 rods on the deck, all with DT10s, but all 4 with different line sizes. So if he gets to a spot where he's running 10 feet, he can run it a true 10 feet on 12-pound line. But if he needs to run that 10 foot or 6 feet, he can run it on 14 or 16-pound test and run it a little bit higher in the water. So just a really good piece of advice that I've taken over the years and put into practice. That's about it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them down in the comment section. If you would be so kind as to subscribe, like, share, whatever you can do to get me to 1,000 subscribers, I would greatly appreciate it. We are at 619 and still moving quickly. So I really do enjoy doing this stuff. It is a lot of work though, and it would be nice to make, pennies on the dollar to help put back into this thing. So if you guys have suggestions though on other videos you want me to do, just let me know, okay? I'd love to get to them, and I need all the content help I can get over these winter months when I can't get the boat in the water. So have a good day, guys. Hope all is well. Hope family and friends are all healthy. Tight lines. We'll see you next time.